There's just 1 minute to showtime.
The engines are on.
The following program is brought to you in living color.
When they wrote up the systems and the rule set that we use, did working people get to write a line? What class of men on pen and paper jotted down their clues? With capital the heart of their design. When 90 million want a thing, but some shareholders say no, which class of people get to have their way? The people read the fine print, say that this thing has got to go, and we'll start writing a new contract here today. Don't you know that hundreds will work and one man keeps the money? They don't think they gotta tell us why. When they say the new social contract, all the bosses will be gobsmacked and everyone will want a sign. Oh, yeah, everyone will want a sign.
All right. So many steps, but here we are. Hello, and thank you for joining us for an all-new episode of Social Contract. We are here with this week's Fresh Hell, and as always, I am joined by my talented and illustrious co-host, Mr. Mayor Jared. Hello,
Good morning,
Jared.
buddy. What is going on?
Yeah. So here we are. It's never a good conversation, unfortunately. One of these days we're gonna get around to just talking straight up utopia, because everything is shit all the time. So we're always bringing you the gloom and doom report, and this week is completely the same. We're not talking war, at least this week. It's all still going down, but that's at least quieted down somewhat. Trump is going to be hosting Netanyahu sometime, I think next week. Which is nothing new, nothing that we haven't, come up against multiple times. And so that's really not going to change much of anything, but they're saying it's because he wants to try to push a ceasefire agreement type of a situation. I doubt it. People kind of put him into the mold of in this election of being anti-war, which is and never was, going to actually be the case. He really just took the baton from the Biden administration, and really just ran with it in a way that was just really, I think, anticipated by anybody with a Brian. So, it looks like maybe we drop Jared here for a second. We'll see what happens. In any case, we do have, some kind of maybe good scenarios going on at the moment, or we'll see some potential in some stuff, because with this Zohran Mamdani win, primary people, let's be clear, it's a primary. So he's not mayor of New York. So we'll unpack that a little bit more about what that means, what that doesn't mean, because he's really getting cast in the mold of being a communist, a full-blown communist, and he's gonna ruin America, and here it comes, and oh my goodness, and capitalism is that threat, blah 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 blah. Well, he's not a communist. So and as a couple of communists, we'll be able to tell you a little bit more about that. And when we get Jared coming back through, he'll be able to hopefully tell us. He's the more like study version of the show. I'm kind of just like the like angry, and he's the more educational point of view, which makes sense because of his background as an educator. So he can bring the more Marxist-Leninist point of view, but we'll kind of unpack that a little bit as well. I hope we both will. We'll see if he's going to come through. And And but tech problems are nothing new to our show, of course. So we'll do what we can do. But what we are looking at right now is that going to amount to anything? Is that going to do the dreaded domino effect that we've been historically told was always going to happen if communism became the law of the land, that it would just fall and fall and fall. Every other capitalist country is going to fall to communism. Good. That's what we want. It's no surprise that the countries that are able to implement socialistic and communistic points are successful and good for the most part, if they're not being embargoed and hampered in a big way by the United States, which is usually the case. Pretty much all of the global South had been run down by the American government and installed a puppet government at some point. You may have heard this story when it comes to Ukraine. So that's something else we'll hopefully be able to get into. Not seeing him. We'll see what's going to happen. One or both of us are going to go over these points. We also, this past weekend, Glastonbury Festival, big music festival in the UK, took place, which is usually very benign and kind of just like, oh yeah, music, yay. But this time it was very politically charged. But there is one act that goes by Bob Villain that is taking the brunt of the heat that had been Kneecap, Ireland's own, that had been taking a lot of heat for their political stance on the Palestinian genocide. And now some others have joined in the call, and now they're seeing this kind of pushback. But I don't think that it's necessarily a coincidence that the rest of the world and America are really promoting this anti-IDF, anti-Greater Israel, anti-conquest language at the same time as the Mamdani win came into play. Now, the whole 90 million% rest of the country, the United States, is going to look at this Mamdani thing as probably in about two ways. One being like, first of all, it's a mayor of New York. How does that affect me in wherever, Montana? Because it does a little bit, and it could in a big way, potentially. But it also could potentially signify a big change, because you say, well, what does one really have to do with the other? And that is because from the communist and socialistic point of view, we don't do genocide. And we live by our morals and our convictions, and we're not worried about making sure that other people die from lack of food and sustenance and medical care and housing and such. So I think I'm getting an incoming message here. I'm vamping a little bit here just because I was waiting to see what was going on. Okay. I'm gonna let him know that I got his message. He has just in. He's letting me know that he had his internet's gone down, which is something that I have happen all the time. So we'll just kind of unpack this a little bit. Let's see here. Shout out to the chat. Hey to Are You Time Traveler 2, one of our devoted and regular viewers. Hello to Nilo Nistrom. Hi. Thank you for joining us, or me, at this moment. Which reminds me, I will be doing a solo show next week because Jared will be doing some gigs. So he's going to be in and out a little bit over the next few weeks. And then, so we'll have him around some of the time, and some of the time will just be me. And we'll kind of figure out the schedule as it goes. So I can't remember now suddenly if I mentioned it or not, because it's been literally breaking news. But the big bullshit bill just passed through the Senate. They went through the vote-a-rama process, which means that they basically just held out or scrambled to add whatever they could get away with adding that would benefit themselves in their state, or waited for a deal to come through, because that is literally how politics is done, a la bribery. So there's not much to tell about it right now. Basically, they made their amendments, which aren't super clear at this point yet. And then that will go back to the House, which already passed it anyways. But in both cases, it was very narrowly passed to begin with. And I don't think anybody's really all that surprised that this went through. It was going to go through in some form or fashion anyway. And we will be looking at, the impact from this is really not going to be super clear until it starts actually happening. Because it's also kind of hard to get a good grasp on it, because the people who initially started reporting it were like, oh, well, this is going to knock out the ACA. Well, a lot of the people on the left aren't for the ACA. I'm not, because it was always a corporate scam, essentially. Oh, my man is back. Okay, he's going to be on screen here in a minute. I didn't want to get into anything heavy until I got the chance to get him back on screen. So, all right, yes.
Man. Went down like the second we hit play, too.
Yeah, no, yeah, I'm not surprised. It happens to me all the time. But I was kind of just vamping a little bit because I wanted to make sure you were here for the right topics. To catch you up, I was just at the point of saying we don't really know what's going on with the budget bill or the new amendment so much, and that it's back to the House now, and which
every day I see that it's passed, and then I look like, oh, passed, and it's like, oh, the subcommittee of blah 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 passed. It's like, oh, okay, and then, oh, but it passed. Like, wait, passed? It's like, no, it passed the Senate. Now it's going back to the House. Like, oh, okay. It's not that I don't think it will get through.
It's not going to go through. We just had some holdouts seeing what they were going to be able to get out of the situation.
See, I don't even freaking know what to think anymore, because we did this is like, as I was going out of connection, we just did like the takesies backsies war, where we did a war and then we're like, actually we didn't do a war, and so far that just like, that's on pause, I guess. So yeah. Like it's like many of the things where it's you hear about, oh, this huge big thing is gonna happen, and then Liberation Day, and then never mind, actually it's fine.
Yeah. It's at this stage a little bit unclear what's going to now be included, and I had just mentioned right before you came back that the only people really reporting on it at this stage right now, who also don't really have any information about it, are like, oh, well, it's just going to wipe out a bunch of ACA provisions. But the people on the left are like, fuck the ACA. So it's not really like that was always a big corporate giveaway, basically. So it wasn't the godsend that it was made to look like. That was a lot of propaganda that went into that. And because Obama is a great villain in history, we'll remember him as such. That's just where we are. So we really don't have any information to report as far as that goes. That is currently unfolding.
It is pretty fun and weird that, like, I keep seeing, because if you're on Twitter, Elon Musk just puts his, you get Elon's tweets no matter what. He's going to show up on your feed. Right. But for the last couple days, he's just been going like, the BBB adds all this money to the debt and it's horrible and all of that. And I'm like, wow, I'm over here like Elon Musk's having good takes. Because at the end of the day, he's correct. If the whole point was for him to come in with Doge and like knock out half the federal government or whatever, and then they turn around and they do the biggest military budget of all time again, which we do every year, everybody. Every year we break that record, isn't it fun? And then turns around and takes all of the savings from Doge and just piles that into like this. Now we have a positive $5 trillion to the deficit bill, and it's not that I'm a deficit hawk in the conventional sense, in that I like have this weird childish illusion that countries are like households and we have to have a balanced checkbook and blah blah blah. It's that every one of those dollars represents another frickin' bomb that's getting sent across the ocean, another, like, it's just nonsense money for fake money, fake sake. If that money was actually going into America, I might frickin' support some of it. But every year we send billions anywhere but these United States, and it's just more of that, and Elon is correctly pointing that out, actually, even though I don't think he would use the money better.
And this is happening more and more, but it's the onion meme about like worst guy you know.
Worst guy you know, had a great point.
Great point. And fuck. Like, you just have to keep, like, all these people are just making really good points, and it's like, you are Satan. I don't want to agree with you on anything. No, I did hear something earlier today, and I cannot talk about, like, the validity of it, but something about Trump mentioning he's looking into deporting Elon. And I'm like, man, don't threaten me with a good time. But that won't work because Elon has more money than Trump can even imagine.
They swapped them out with Palantir Peter Thiel. He's the new tech. Like maybe it's like, was Elon supposed to, like, he softened us up with like, oh, we're used to like a weird tech guy saying shit, and then they're gonna bring in the real one, Peter Thiel, who they're actually gonna do stuff with.
I don't think he's that clever, but that's what's happened. Like that's the
It's like a
only
rope-a-dope situation where it's like, oh, we just got rid of the one billionaire. Now we have this other guy who
yeah.
who
Who
wants to put us
actually
all in a
competent, knows
database.
what he's doing. Yeah.
He's like, we're going to put
So
every American in a database and we're going to run your life. And it's like, no, you can't make the weird conspiracies real. You can't do it.
so that's where we are. We're feeling it out. We're seeing what's going on in real time.
Do you want to talk about electoral change?
Yeah. I was just noticing. You may have noticed this also. Sometimes that when we sign in, our handles get messed up. You got my handle on your.
Oh, it does.
screen.
Does it even let me
That's
change
okay
it?
though. We're both me today. Yeah. No. Let's get into it. Let's get into it now that you're back. So yeah, go for it, man.
So we have yet another a potential. So if you start studying, I've been studying Marxism. I don't know if you know about this, but I've been looking into the readings of Karl Marx and the studies of like dialectics, etc. And there's one. There's one of the things that A does not equal A, being like would have been an algebraic expression of the idea that two things that are the same are never actually the same. Like, you can make broad generalizations of like, yes, oatmeal cookies, but every individual is, in a literal sense, different. They aren't. There is no A does not equal A. There are no true actual duplicate. So like when Bernie comes around, it's A. Now you have I'm combining his names into Zamdani. It's Zohran Mamdani. So then you have Mamdani, who kind of feels like a rep. Oh, it's like electoral politics are back, everybody. We voted for the Jesus, and he's going to save all of the world by being mayor of New York City. But I'm sure everyone has heard Zohran Mamdani, who is the DSA-backed candidate, even though he still is just running as a Democrat. He's not an independent. He's not running as some other different party. He's just within the Democratic Party system, which is the number one reason I think this is all fake and bullshit, not to bury the lead. He is either going to be, that's the thing, even if he ran as an independent, Bernie is still like within the Democratic Party, even though he is an independent on paper. He still votes with them and strategizes with them because, as I've said many times, they have dirt on his wife. His wife committed some minor frauds. Not that I'm saying she's evil or their family is a big crime family, but she basically did a Trump university, and every time Bernie goes against the party, those stories start coming up. Bernie's wife and all this, and then as soon as he does what he's like, oh, Israel has a right to exist, those stories go back down. You don't talk about those stories. So Mamdani is either going to be another blackmail Bernie situation where he just bends the knee to the Democratic apparatus, or he will be removed. Currently, all of the Dems are, and I say all of, there's a fracture in all the parties, and that's what it's kind of fun right now. Fun, in a scary way. Everything's up for grabs. But right now, the more conservative Democrats, the even more conservative Democrats are rallying around Eric Adams, who is the current mayor and a Democrat technically, but it's New York City, so to win, you just have to be Democrat. Eric Adams, heavily criticized for many things.
Pretty much universally hated, but that doesn't matter in politics.
But wins the elections, which, man, that all just fills into my whole thing of like, these are all not fake in a literal sense. It's not like your votes are counted somewhere, but there's enough levers they can pull that the result can kind of be, it's more closer to like freaking pro wrestling. We're going to get there one way or another. If they really don't want Mamdani, if between now and then Mamdani doesn't accept his like AIPAC handler and like the whatever fucking blood money they want to throw at him, they'll be like, uh-oh, and they're going to freaking pull the eject lever and they'll make sure he doesn't get in there. Something will happen mysteriously, like that. I'm about to start cursing casually for no reason. Like that woman who, by all reports I know, that comrade in freaking Buffalo, New York, who was like, I'm a communist, and then magically she was just gone from politics.
And they were also like, do we really even need a mayor? No.
Yeah, do we need mayors?
Yeah, and then that one, like, okay.
It's like Chuck Schumer said, they have 7 ways from Sunday to get to you if you do anything we don't like. They being the intelligence community he's referring to. Like, something will happen. I don't think they'll just straight up kill him. That'd be a little crazy. But like, wasn't it like Dan Quaid or something? Dan Quayle. Quaid's an actor. Isn't it like there was freaking, I can't remember the politician, but this happened more than once, where if you're problematic enough for the Democratic apparatus, they will make your district disappear. They'll redraw your lines. Didn't they do that to Cory Booker? They like got him out of office by redrawing his district. So like, F you, Cory, you didn't say go Israel fast enough.
Yeah.
He still ended up getting on board, but it took him like a month. So they're like, all right, you're out. You're losing your seat. Sorry, we're taking away your
and we
your
get
election
a gerrymandering situation, which if you want some more contemporary info on that, the Dark Money Game is a really good documentary that will, if you can get a hold of that, that will kind of paint the picture of gerrymandering and corporate corruption and political corruption at that. And that's like the kind of the whole story there. So I definitely recommend it to anybody who wants to take a deeper dive. And maybe if you get sleepy reading, it's good for something to watch.
At the end of the day, the craziest part of all of this, not craziest part, but like this is the whole A doesn't equal A. Once again, remember, this feels like I'm talking about Bernie again when we get into this, where it's, if you look at the policies that Mamdani is proposing, they aren't even actually crazy. Like, well, this is Stalinist Russia right now. Like, everything's free and you stand in a bread line. Like, that is not even what is being proposed. So I wanted to go down an article here, like look at a couple of the things, and
it's the most basic, normal thing.
It's like, minimum wage increase and some child care credits. Like, it's still done in like the libbest possible way of like, you'll get applications, and then if you qualify, like, all right. When Zohran, it's Zohran, right? Like, there's not like, it's
hard to not, I mean, it is hard not to say Zoltan, and that's not because it's like some kind of slight or like a racism. It's just because it's just like, that's where my brain goes like every time I see his name. But I find if I say Mamdani, then I know who I'm talking about, and I don't.
Even then, I'm just assuming I'm not like putting a weird emphasis, like, oh no, it's Mamdani or the.
No, I don't think so. I think it's just Zohran Mamdani.
He launched his mayoral campaign for New York City last year. Many wrote off his chances. He's a South Asian Muslim Democratic Socialist. He faced resistance from his own party's establishment. Even the New York Times editorial board told voters not to support the 33-year-old. And that's the fact that we're now, like, I'm reading this in NPR. I'm not reading this in some weird commie rag journal or whatever. Like, so the amount of resistance they're like putting up on him almost makes it feel like, oh, I see, they're putting up the enemies for him to defeat. Like when you have frickin' Laura Loomer is tweeting like, he eats with his hands, he's a dirty African, and it's like, this feels like fake racism set up to make me react in the opposite direction. It's like they're trying to make me like him by talking about how he's shitty but in good ways. Like, he's so evil, he wants to give you food. And like, it's like, oh, is this like a reverse psychology?
And here's him eating the food. Like, yeah, exactly. What do you do? Like, wait a minute. Yes.
Even though Mamdani tried hard to keep affordability at the center of his campaign, others tried to define his identity with unsubstantiated claims that he was, like, he's a fake Muslim. He's like Obama. He's born in blah blah, and he's not American. Just the same
Hussein!
Shit. Hussein. Mamdani. This is Mamdani talking here, like, I don't blame New Yorkers for having that caricature because they've had to deal with more than $30 million of spending that paints me in that manner, that smears and slanders me, that artificially lengthens the color and the length of my beard. They released things where he had like a big, you were talking about that, they made his beard larger.
Like, okay. Like, don't have a beard, I guess.
It's like New York City is like, it's famously full of immigrants, so like I don't even get that attempt.
Right.
It's like you made him look more like the people who live in New York City.
Yeah.
Oh, what is it? NPR's Leela Fadel sat down with Mamdani, discussed his lessons. All right, I'm trying to get to the part. Like, where do we get? All right, interview policies. This is Leela Fadel talking from NPR. Let's talk about your policies, because one of the criticisms your detractors have is that it sounds great to have free childcare, free buses, blah blah blah. You can't afford it. I understand. Kind of. Any mayor that has an ambition that meets the scale of the crisis of the people that they're seeking to represent will have to work with Albany. Okay, Albany, the capital of New York, referring to that he has to, referring that New York City is not the entire state and he has more
mayor. Like he would, or he's not even that yet. But if he was, he would just be a mayor, like any other mayor. Like, so it doesn't matter that it's like America's biggest, like, main mental city. He would still just be a mayor. At best.
He says, I say to you as an assembly member who won the first fare-free bus pilot in New York City, who saw that in making buses free, it wasn't simply about economic relief, but about public safety. The fact that assaults on bus drivers went down by 40% through the pilot. What? The fact that we actually saw an increase in riders who had previously been driving a car, taxi, blah, blah, blah. Like, that's the thing. Like, these are, when we talk about these being light, gentle policies, you might go, what? Free bus? That sounds very radical. And it's like, dude, there's so many cities in the world that already do this. Like, most of Germany just doesn't charge you to get on the bus because you're paying out the ass in taxes already. If I go downtown and pay fucking $40 total in sales tax throughout the duration of my trip, I think that $40 might cover the, like, dollar bus fare I was supposed to pay. Okay, going down to the economic benefits just outweigh the cost. The cost is here. The benefits are here. I don't say that people should move towards my economic ideas because they're like nice and would make us all happy and Care Bears rainbows, but because they just are better. Like, it is more competitive. Like, it is more advantageous to your economy to do stuff like this. It doesn't just blow money. What we do now just blows money. We instead spend millions and millions of dollars on buses that nobody fucking rides. No. And then you get on it and there's 6 people pissing in the corner. You're like, well, this sucks. And then you never ride the bus again because the only people getting on the bus are people who aren't paying fares anyway. All right. No, and I actually had someone express
people
this.
People have a very negative opinion of public transportation, and they've been made to, and not only because of like the experiences they've had or been told by other people, but again through propaganda by the the automotive industry, who's been like, ew, buses, and that really sneaks into the zeitgeist of our lives to think like, oh, public transportation, that's for poors and grosses. I don't want that.
I heard somebody put it as like, why is the guy jerking off on the subway tolerated? And it's like, well, they're tolerated because it's an exercise to humiliate the working class because they have to take the bus. And they're like, haha, fuck you. You have to sit here within this horrible conditions for literally no reason other than you need to know your place.
Right. It's meant to be a class signifier to say that if it's somehow a moral failing.
Shut up! Look how bad it could be. Go to your stupid job that doesn't do anything. All right.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
The way you say you're going to pay for these programs, increase of taxes, and on the top 1% of New Yorkers, he's like, so again, that's a non-starter for Governor Hochul. She said that. So how are you going to pay for it?
Right. The familiar refrain of how are you going to pay for it?
Yeah, and I'm over here just like, peel $1 billion off of any of these nonsense nothing programs. This is where I end up sounding heartless. Where it's like, take whatever fake homeless fighting thing you have, just give that budget to it because it's not doing anything. Like, if you look into these things at all, it just becomes a crazy cycle of money wasting where it's, we increased funding to end homelessness by $1 million, and then it turns out that half of that million went to paying for cops to then go cite people living in their car, and then the other $500,000 went to pay to tow those cars, and that's like helping home. I'm preaching to the choir here. I know. I'm trying to get to one that isn't just how you're going to pay for it, because he's going to be like, I want to raise taxes.
The whole idea about those kind of initiatives is one way or another, whether it's food for children, whether it's anti-homelessness, whether it's transportation, somehow or another, the language gets written that money goes to the cops. The end. Like, every city you will see this is true. It doesn't matter if it's Podunk Junction or New York City. It's going to ultimately be funneled into the pockets of the cops. Full stop.
When Mamdani won, he's like, I'm not anti-Semitic. In fact, I'm making a whole thing of funding to fight anti-Semitism. And what does that mean? Here's some more money for the cops. That's all it ever is. Yeah. Or no, we'll call them not a cop, but they won't have a gun. They'll be in a shirt, and we're going to give them money to do what? Put up a billboard that says "Don't hate the Jews."
Yeah. Well, also, I'd like to kind of point out, like, when's the last time you heard a mayor ask their opinion on Israel? It is just so and that's again at the top of the show when I was kind of vamping a little bit. I was saying, like, it is really not a coincidence that we're seeing this gigantic global anti-Israeli, anti-IDF sentiment at the same time as a Mamdani win, because those things they do jive, they do go together, because it's, we're talking more of a communistic, despite his lack of being a communist, it is a more communistic idea. So that's where this is coming from. It's because we don't want to do war, and we're not trying to disparage any kind of persons. Like, the Jewish people are not the issue here. So the cry for anti-Semitism is just out of control and ridiculous. It's about the persecution. It's about the overdoing. It's about. Did you have something you wanted to finish before? I saw you took that off the screen, so I didn't need to.
There's nothing. I'm actually kind of surprised of how little detail the NPR thing gets into. It didn't mention the whole, like, city-owned grocery stores.
Right. Like and that's such a bare minimum talking point there. I mean, I think some of his topics were a few, like 5 city-owned grocery stores. Oh, communism. He wanted buses that worked, that you could ride, that were clean, and you could, and like, that went places and worked. Okay. And, childcare and healthcare, like, these are just like the bar is so low, it's underground at this point. So, like, something that seems to people that is so minimal ends up getting conflated and blown up to the idea that this is communism. Well, it's communistic, but no, it's not communism. So, but after his win, their Google searches for socialism skyrocketed because, okay, what do you mean? What do you mean then that this is bad or good if I'm constantly been told my entire life we don't even say communism or socialism because it's so bad? What do you mean? What do you mean China's doing so well? Why, I've seen the videos. Why is China doing so great if they're socialist and communist? What am I not being told there? So people at least are taking the initiative, maybe even in a small way, to kind of get a little bit more information. But probably the information that they then resource through Google is going to be very biased.
This is part of why I think he's like an op that is supposed to be like, oh, I like him, because they really need the first socialism that you like interact with to be the kind of socialism, my air quotes are on purpose, that I encountered first, where this is going to sound really harsh. The current meaning of when people talk about being a social democrat or social democracy, we've talked about, like Norway's and Sweden's, etc. What you are describing in a material sense, like what the pieces actually are and how they put together, you're describing fascism with benefits.
Yes.
We currently have fascism with no benefit. Well, it's imperialism, but like effectively you get the same freaking results. The small group of weird oligarchs that run your life. And all that Zohran is proposing is to mildly increase the benefits that our overlords sprinkle onto us.
Yeah.
If you want, quote, communism, so like something that an actual qualitative change in this, in your living conditions, et cetera, and how the country works, an actual shift away from what is just the same thing, but with, instead of getting $50 for your childcare, now you get $75 for your childcare. I don't need government-owned grocery stores. I need people-owned, like, banks. China doesn't just have, we have a couple grocery stores that the state runs, and then anyway, the privately owned bank that controls capital that would allow those grocery stores to exist in the first place, like, you see how that would just completely break any, like, we'll control this as the people. It's like, well, the guy who determines whether or not you get the capital investment to do that thing in the first place is a private company, and that private company also owns a Walmart. So do you see how this can immediately becomes conflict of interest? It's nothing. Until you take government and bank and fucking invert it,
Right.
like, the government has to be over the bank, or nothing qualitative can change, because the government will say, I want to do this, and the bank just says, no.
No, exactly. And that's where we get into this, and as advertised, we'll talk about this a little bit. That's where we get into this conversation about what is socialism, what is communism, because people are seem to be growing more comfortable with the term socialism, but still kind of afraid of the word communism. And I think that is it ultimately, Jared could speak to this better than me, but that comes from Marxism. Marx proposed that socialism was a pit stop on the way to communism, which was the ultimate expression.
It doesn't help that the words have been used not just interchangeably, but like back and forth. When Lenin is out there talking about like like the Bolsheviks are getting going, people who were communists and very much successful at Marxism, Leninism, putting it into practice, etc. He called himself a social democrat. Like, he's like, we need to go to social democracy, but that's like a word that, because at the time Russia didn't have democracy at all, so even saying democracy was like, whoa, these are two revolutionary words to us here living in Tsarist Russia. But then over time, that then became, now you have the German Socialist Party, which eventually ended up with Hitler.
That comes up there a little bit.
So then you eventually end up with this rift of like, well, they're the socialists. We, like me, like Trotskyites and blah, 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 they're the socialists, and we are the communists, the actual... Because,
right.
basically, whenever the term gets used in a way that you don't like anymore, then you're like, okay, we need a new term, and then a new term, then a new term. So now we have just like Russian nesting dolls. Haha, funny, Russia. Russian nesting doll of terms where, yes, you are also correct, and then if we're talking about stages of development, we have feudalism, capitalism, socialism, communism. Like, it is kind of like the beginning stages of the transition from capitalism to communism is referred to as socialism. So it's just confusing, and good luck, and I basically have abandoned definition mongering because, like, nobody knows what anything, like, we don't have a common definition of either of these words.
At this point, you're not going to, excluding because he's right. The terms and the groups that use them have evolved, both being bad guys themselves and being cast as bad guys as from the capitalistic sect. So, I think what you will find at this point in time is, with the exclusion of social democrats, because that's like, that's still Democrats. I think you will find that most people who identify as socialists and most people who identify as communists really find that completely to be the same thing, not like a stair step on the way. But you're not going to be like, if somebody's like, I'm a true socialist, then they're not going to be like, I'm a true socialist, but I don't agree with communism on this point. No, it's all homogenous at this stage. So if you're a socialist, you're a communist. If you're a communist, you're a socialist. That's the new evolution of the term. So when you are thinking, oh, this guy Mamdani, he's a socialist, right? No, he's a democratic socialist. So basically a Democrat. He ran with the Democrats.
They asked him, "Are you a communist?" He's like, "No."
No.
He's like immediately, just like no hesitation. Right? It's like,
because
okay.
There is still a big stigma against that, because we still have people out there who, my grandparents ran from the communists. Your grandparents were slave owners. Fuck you. Like that. They
I'm always wondering
that part of the story out. Like
Ted Cruz's dad was tortured by the Cubans. Like, all those damn dirty commies. Like, actually, no, the communists saved me. It was Batista that was tortured.
Right. The installation of the United States. So there is a lot of, you don't have to be a history scholar here. Nobody's asking that of anybody, honestly. It would do you good, but it really doesn't make any difference. You can just listen to yahoos like this, or maybe some experts on these kinds of things. But you are going to have a hard time finding unbiased information. And nobody has ever really said, oh, communism is perfect. No, it's just anti-capitalism. So you can call yourself whatever you want if your values are rooted in anti-capitalism, because we've all done that to the point where now there's nothing left. There's nothing left of this country. It's gone. It was never a good time anyway, ever. The whole idea of I don't know. Did you see this video recently that just came out of a woman who was turning 40, and she was having like a complete meltdown? I don't want to like show it, or it's pretty sad. But she's like, I've just spent my whole life just trying to learn to live and trying to survive, and how this is. And now I get here and I'm 40 and I've got nothing to show for it. I think a lot of people feel that exact same way and are kind of bewildered by aging at this point, because we look at our parents, we look at our grandparents, we look at the Generation Xers, depending on how old you are, and realize like, oh, actually having goals and achievements and life milestones was a luxury. That was something that a very small group of people got to have and abide by and enjoy and hit all these I got married, you buy my first house and get married and have children, and then let's save for retirement and go to take a trip to Hawaii, like they do all these things. But that has always been strictly something that most millennials and forward have had no access to. So you have a lot of confusion about why is my life so garbage? I don't have anything to show for what I've done, because you've witnessed it, that's what happens. That you're supposed to have these milestones, you're supposed to do these things, you're supposed to be somewhere, you're supposed to have to save retirement money, and then we see people like that woman who just had this emotional breakdown over it. She posted the video herself. It wasn't like somebody filmed it at a restaurant or something, just to be clear. But that's just an example I'm giving here to kind of make the point that we, every generation before, our grandparents, and every generation, millennial and on forward, have only lived to survive. And that is really there. That's where we get the lie of the American dream, and anything post-war was something that almost nobody in America ever had. So we've really just doubled back in the modern society to essentially living in a feudalistic society. You can still call it what you want, and that's why we're seeing this turn against Israeli tyranny, against American tyranny, against capitalism. And so it doesn't matter what you call yourself, so long as you start to open your eyes to, my problems I did not cause myself. I did everything I could possibly do. I've done my best, and it still didn't get me to where my grandparents were, where my parents were, so on and so forth. And then that's what's inspiring these movements. But, as we've been saying, are these movements just empty gestures? Are they ops? Are they even anything?
The number of disgruntled people continues to increase, and I think that is regardless of traditional left-right political leanings, because it does not take, you don't have to be a certain type of voter to look around and realize that things aren't going well, and that Once you get to that stage, that's where I found myself at the Bernie thing, because before that I was, you do the ways you are told to, you express yourself in the ways that you are told to by, school, the system. You vote, you go out and you vote, and that's when you're like, oh, I'm voting for Obama, or fucking I'm voting for freaking, I'm trying to think of a good like Republican, I'm voting for Thomas Massey, I'm voting for Ron Paul, that was the guy. I'm voting for Ron Paul, but like a lot of ex-Ron Paul people end up in the same situation where it's like, okay, we tried as hard as we can in the approved lane, and not only did we just like, oh, you just lost, you did your best, and all very sportsman and fair, you get inside and go, oh, this is nonsense. I was actually just looking up the mayor in Buffalo that we were alluding to earlier. She won the Democratic primary and then lost the general election in a write-in. She lost to the second-place Democrat guy in a write-in campaign. And I'm sitting here looking at Eric Adams in this New York campaign, and I'm like, that's how you know. If Mamdani is real, he will lose. If he is fake, he will win.
The same thing happened to Cori Bush. She got one term, and they were like, oh, she's an enemy of the people, and then she was out. You never heard from her again.
And it's not even everybody, because some situations, like a Rashida Tlaib, she seems to be able to, she's like the designated, you can talk. You can say whatever you want for the most part. You can even withhold your vote on a lot of things. Because she holds a district where she's there as long as she wants, man. Like, they can't get her out of there. Like, and I'm certain that there's probably some even more, like, gonna actually do something candidate that she may or may not be, like, keeping out of the spot by filling it. Like, that's how the strategy seems to be. It's like, we'll take some damage by letting some people, like, you can, like, AOC was kind of one of those for about a week, and then they're like, oh, we turned her, she can. But once you get to the stage of going, okay, and also the approved ways that the system has allowed, and it starts sounding ridiculous as you talk about it. Wow, the system gave us these ways that we're supposed to be able to change the system, and they don't work. I can't believe that the system gave us a way to change the system that is ineffective at changing the system.
Yes. And that's also why you're starting to see people who are like boomers, who are like, I did everything I was supposed to do. I followed the rules. I never got arrested. I paid my taxes. I was a good person, blah, 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 as they so believe about themselves. And then all their Social Security is bleeded away. Their health care is bleeded away. It's like they never got anywhere. They lost, and then boomer deaths are up like way high from overdoses than like any previous generation or anything around it, because like they suddenly found out like, oh, shit is real. And nobody actually there. I didn't get what I was promised, and they can't handle it because they were the most spoiled generation of people you could ever imagine because of luxury. Checking into the chat, Nila Nostrum says there are people who think that they're socialists, but then they don't. Want socialism to be the transition to communism, which makes them progressivism, and then people forget what progressives are, and that's correct. Because
historical progressivism, not just like I have the craziest social opinions that makes me progressive.
Progressives are your AOCs, your people like this that are.
I think what Nilo is alluding to here is that like if you go back in time, frickin' Abraham Lincoln is historically progressive, even though by today's standards he'd be considered very backward thinking and racist.
Yes.
He ended slavery. That was progressive. He did it. Like he got us to a next step. George Washington progressed us to a new thing, like exiting feudalism, the feudal control of a British king, onto capitalism, which is a progress from a king. It's not that it's progress compared to now, but like at the time.
Yeah. We have our traveler too saying, I've managed to convert 2 people to socialism. Yes, good job there. Anyway, those 2 comments kind of go hand in hand because that there is, if you do want to get into the dichotomy of language, a progressive is not anything more than a Democrat who's masquerading as
what Americans in politics call themselves. They like people who walk around saying, I am like, what party are you? It's like, well, I'm just a progressive. That usually means I don't like bad things, and then I'm going to yell at you a lot to vote for Democrats at the end, which is the DSA. Like that was the next step I got to. I'm like, things are really bad. Well, what if I keep voting for this same party, but every few months I go in the street and get really mad and hold a sign? And then that also did not change anything. Right. And that came to its head during Black Lives Matter summer, where we protested our asses off everybody, and it was a valiant effort. And I'm happy with good job, everyone. I was there. I did it. I was out protesting too here in Phoenix. Did not change anything. So if you are doing,
it did. Well, we got cop cities in every place.
Got the opposite result of what you want.
Explosive cop budgets.
So if we're treating this like the search for things that work, we now have crossed stuff off the list. Voting straight uniparty doesn't do shit. Voting straight uniparty while being mad about it doesn't do shit. So then you get to, okay, well, where has this actually worked? And then you start reading, then that's where you end up, that's how I ended up reading. Okay, let's look at Russia. What was happening in Russia? How did they beat the capitalists? Oh, Lenin. Oh, cool. What was he saying? Oh, who did he learn from? Marx. All right, so now you're looking at Marx. And then, like, all that we have is, you talk about historical materialism. You look at what has worked in the past. Let us attempt to not replicate it exactly, but using the same ideas. That's why I talk about putting the bank, government bank-like situation needs to be inverted. You can argue all day about whether China is communist or state capitalist, whatever the hell. It is inarguable that the results gained from putting the government over the bank are a rapidly increasing middle class, rapidly increasing wages, standard of living, all the things that we care about. They got childcare, they got healthcare, none of it's free either, by the way. It's just so cheap it doesn't matter. It's like your healthcare is $2. And you're like, what? You don't even think of it. You don't feel it. It's not like here where like, oh God, my car payment. Ugh, oh God, my rent. Ugh, oh God. Like their expenses continue to go down. Like their real wages continue to rise, even if you look and be like, what do you mean their wages are going up? They only make $10 a week. It's like, yeah, but their whole expense is $5 a week, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, well, no, you're completely correct, and that's the thing. There is an argument, like, it's like, well, there are people who are essentially masquerading as progressives, saying that they want change, but they don't really want change. They're afraid to break out of the cycle. They hadn't got to that point yet. And again, we wouldn't.
I don't hear Mamdani talking about the death of finance capital and how we need to subserve Wall Street to the will of the proletariat or whatever.
Yes, like that's where we want to go with this ultimately. So again, it doesn't really matter. It's semantical what you call yourself. It depends on where your values are rooted and how.
Do you think the bank should run everything or not? And that's the divide. And you can go ahead and go like, oh, my solution is I'm going to go try being a big Nazi. It's like, guess what? The Nazis put the bank super duper extra in charge. Like it's even worse. It's just going farther in the direction we are. That's like the bank should be coming in your freaking individual. That's Palantir. We're coming into your living room. We're gonna freaking monitor every aspect of your life and tell you how to live and all this. Like that's what people think communism is. And it's
right.
really the opposite. Like if you want to start a small business, the Chinese are your friend. They have big signs that a bunch of commies got mad about that says, join the party, start your business, I think it said. And they're like, what do you mean? You can't be a communist and do a business. And it's like, read a book, please. Read a book. Read a book. Read a goddamn book.
Yeah, no, so it helps. It helps to learn these things independently, and that's something that people are not used to having to do, because anybody who's a millennial or below that age, or I guess maybe a little bit above in the Gen X's, they were shoved into the school system and said,
you've been lied to.
Yeah, this is it. This is all. This is everything. This is all you will ever need to know. This will run you the rest of your life. And they took no initiative to educate themselves or question these things. And then that's, because your parents told you, like, this is how it's going to be. This is what it is. They wouldn't tell you it in school if it wasn't true. You've been lied to your whole goddamn life. And again, we've said this before. We wouldn't be here ourselves if we didn't start off as shit lips. We were for a long time.
Obama, to Bernie, to AOC.
We drank the Kool-Aid in a big way. Yeah, like we went right with it. And it looked like it was going to work out. Like, how moved were we by Bernie? Like, you could look at the numbers and remember that, like, people who across the spectrum who were considered themselves even apolitical were just like, Bernie! Like, we went for it so hard. And we fell for it so hard.
He's the only guy who's ever got me out of I walked around hot-ass Phoenix and knocked on doors it's not even that you go and tell people to vote for Bernie. You just go and you go to the most likely Democrat voter houses and go, hey, do you know where you vote? You know where your thing is? Yeah. So I can help you find it. And then you go, thank you. And then you leave. That's
Yeah.
And I did that for no one but Bernie Sanders.
Right.
And I am now called like, oh, you're a horrible Trump supporter. I'm like, wait, what? Huh? How? It's like, well, you don't vote for the Democrats every time. It's like, read a book, read a goddamn book.
Oh, yeah. Let that be the headline of the episode here. Is like we encourage you to take the reins here. Get some initiative. And of course, you're going to run into a lot of propaganda, but if you're seeing it, you got to learn to recognize that stuff too. You are also not immune to propaganda across the board, no matter what it is. And you have to start to, really
freaking read everything. Go read Mein Kampf. Do it. Yeah. Then go read Capital.
You've got to get your critical thinking skills up to par, especially in this world that we live in, where everything is AI slop and you never know what is true. And it's like you could hear one thing and then you hear the immediate opposite thing, like tweet for tweet, and it's hard to tell what is true and what is not, and it's hard to souse out what are factual sources and what aren't, and what is trustworthy and what isn't. And that's just the nature of the beast at this time. That's the world we live in. We live in Reagan's America. This is exactly what he was going for when he sold off the government, although he was a lot more tougher on Israel, we will say. Just, not to his credit, he gets no credit. He is burning in hell as we speak. But the fact of it is this was Reagan's end game. And all of these, we've had like 11 Reagans since then, so that's where everybody was going, because they benefit. They all have benefited significantly. When Joe Biden was vice president, for Obama, and his son was dying of cancer, he went to Obama in a friendly way, maybe, and as we're told, and was told that I think I'm going to have to sell my house to afford his treatments, to cover these bills. And this is the
isn't your family covered by your benefits?
Right? Yeah. This is what we were told. Well, maybe because he was an adult.
Oh, you're right. He's not like a dependent.
He's not dependent, but he was a full-on adult.
How bad are you with money, Biden? You guys are worth millions of dollars.
Right. Well, at that time, he wasn't. It was a little bit different, because he went. This is the story also that we were fed. So it's like, don't read into it. Don't read into it. But we were told this story, and this is so humanizing and special. That he was like, "Oh, it's our family home, and we love it, and we think we're going to have to sell it so we can afford to his care and to pay the debts medically." And Obama was like, "Nope, nope." And he covered it, because he took his millions of dollars and covered it. Okay, so if Biden was in that desperate of a situation, and then when he goes out and he's like, "We're going to moonshot curing cancer," you never heard about that again. And then
we will cure cancer.
And we're going to cure it. And he's eating ice cream. So adorable. So fast forward to him now. He's like a multi-millionaire, right? And it didn't stop him from getting ball cancer, whatever. And so at this point, it didn't do you any good. You're also going to hell. But the point is, it's like, if he was in that big of a strait just a few years ago, and then becomes president, and all that, then that means, obviously they are right there in front of your face, gaining so significantly from doing the bidding of corporations and of billionaires.
It says he did buy a $2.7 million home on Rehoboth Beach in 2017. So yeah, that'd be right about out of the Oval Office into Rehoboth Beach Mansion.
Yeah, right. Well, that just makes the point that, what are you supposed to believe? Oh, his pockets were turned out, and Obama came to his rescue, and then now suddenly he's like a multi-millionaire.
Joe Biden also famously lies his ass off when he tells stories, so it's like,
yeah, right.
Sounds
it also
right.
looks like they're supposed to get $400,000 a year or something like that, or that's it. So you don't become a millionaire, the multimillionaire, that way.
So you get your speaking engagements, which is funny, because I've heard reports that Biden's having a really hard time getting any money for speeches because he's Biden. It's like, dude, you can't talk. That's your whole thing.
And speaking of Biden, everybody made I'm so sick of liberals, because they made this gigantic deal out of oh, well, the woman that just got killed in Tim Walz's district, who was assassinated, he went and kneeled and prayed at her funeral, and he called the family, and it's like, who fucking cares? Because they're just still so orange man bad that it's like, you wonder at this point, is it even possible in our lifetimes to get past electoralism? That is the main problem here. Mamdani winning that primary, if he can manage to somehow get 5 times the money and 5 times the support, at least, to actually get the mayoral office and keep it, that is going to, with all the insane racism that's already happening and is going to come his way even worse, that, what's going on here?
I think it's going to be Eric Adams.
So easily we decide oh, he's the new Jesus. He's new Bernie. People just fall right back into it, and that's why I've been cautioning all this time that it's as soon as 2028 rolls around, everybody's going to act like Gavin Newsom's a fucking god. And I know he's going to be the nominee. I can't even think of who else would be. They've been grooming him. I thought he was going to be the nominee instead of Kamala Harris, which makes sense that she was now in hindsight, but being the vice president. But the whole idea of this is we don't get out of electoralism unless people themselves make an effort to get out of it, because the system is based on the gains that these people at the top get for doing.
It'll become an act of necessity, like everything. Like people
Yes.
will not, things will not change until they must, and
Right.
we are not yet at a point where things must change, so they won't. Like you would think that any lesson you're going to learn from Mamdani is one that you could have or should have learned with Bernie, and even if you were too young for that, you just look back and go, oh, cool. Like every month there's a new, or you could have learned it from them kicking frickin' David Hogg out of the DNC. Like every option they have to shore things up and keep them as exactly the same as possible is taken. I'm playing the video game Death Stranding 2 right now, and they have literally replaced, it's like a post-apocalyptic America, but not in a very different way. It's not like zombies or whatever. It's just, hey, whenever anyone dies, if you don't take care of it right away, they become a nuclear explosion. And so like, and that like went off and just like hundreds of nuke equivalents because people were like war. And anyway, they now have gone from a character just looks you in the face, because Hideo Kojima, the guy who makes it, has very in-your-face politics, even though it's not obvious what they are. It's just like, this is politics. Think about it. Like they've replaced the American president. The whole thing takes place in America. The American president is now an AI algorithm and a hologram man who comes out, and he is controlled by by a company called it's like freaking Associated. It's an acronym APAC, pronounced APAC. And he has it tattooed on the back of his neck. And I'm like, Kojima, I fucking love you. America is controlled by a puppet president that is in turn controlled by an evil corporation. It's like, yeah, that's basically it. Yeah. You're pretty much getting there, man.
And something you can kind of see as well is that, you know, I've seen those tweets about like, I wonder if the fall of Rome was this stupid. It was. And the fact of the matter is when a society is failing, they start putting in despots and like the stupidest, most incompetent, manipulatable people into these positions of power. Does not seem familiar, and it gets worse and worse and worse. And like even the movie,
they can't let anybody new in. They can't find new people to be new American Idol puppets. That's why you're talking about these other 2 weeks. People are dying in office more and more often because you can't. It really is, hey, look at me, look at this, I'm going to do a negative about the Soviet Union. It's like the end of the Soviet Union. Everybody in charge of that fucked up, stupid bureaucracy was like 9,000 years old. They did not respond to the will of the people, and thus, they lost that shit. Yes, it got illegally taken over in the U.S., meddled and blah, 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 in 1991, but like Gorbachev and all that shit.
Yeah, but they got a Pizza Hut.
They were beaten by Pizza Hut, everybody. Like, you have just a steady decline of it. Why did the USSR fail? Partially because it was fucking around with other countries. It's going into all these other things, doing all these fights, blowing up resources in Afghanistan. Stay home. China and Russia had the Sino-Soviet split like happened over that, where they're like, no, we have to go and do all this. Remember Trotsky? He wanted to go fight everyone. Well, that was dumb. Anyway, we're gonna go fight everyone now. And like,
why did we with different words?
Yeah.
So, but also another point about all of this is like, well, we want something to happen now. That's where we are with the socialist communist sect here. Is like now, time is now. You know, we're reaching our 40s and no quality of life here. You know, it's like 60% of people polled recently are like, I have, my life is garbage. So like that's like the fact of it is like, okay, yay, fall of America. It took like 500 years for Rome to fall. Like it took forever, you know, like these things don't happen quickly. We look at them back historically, like, oh, when they did the beheadings in France, then everything was happy. No, like it took forever for these things to become something else, to divide up or to become, you know, adhering to a new system. Like in the only way that this goes anywhere is something we've talked about before, which is that if we feel we don't blame people for getting excited about Mamdani. It was a real nice day, you know, when he won that primary.
People's hearts are in the right place. Like I want you to have healthcare and shit.
You can't blame people or any of us really for participating in a broken system when there is no other system in place in which to do anything yet. We know the left has zero organization. We have zero leadership. We can't agree on anything, you know, like, so there's not a lot of likelihood that anything's going to come out of that anytime soon, and the hero will rise. Like,
That's why I'm talking about how we got to go talk to rednecks, because I'm like, I've been around leftists so long, these fuckers will not work with anybody that's like a weird religious sect where they're going to look and be like, you're a sinner, you can never be with us. I'm like, that's why you lose. This is why you fail. Like,
yeah, and so that's we either need an entirely new system that rises up and nullifies the current system, and we're like, okay, we're not going to do what you say, we're going to do it, an acts of protest, we're going to do this version of government, we're going to do this version of living. Or the moderate stance is we need a new party. You hear a lot of people talking about the need of a new party. Okay.
Oh, yeah, that was the thing Elon was throwing out too. He's like, we need these Republicans are all the same. And I'm like, Elon, you are correct on this case.
Yes. And the fact of it is you have regular just people, bloggers, people making comments all the way up to Elon, definitely coming from different points of view here about getting a new party. So, okay, let's say we get a new party. Let's say we get ranked choice voting. We're still subscribing to the same broken capitalist system that has been going on. And eventually, hey, we got a new party. The Green Party isn't that old. There's your new party. And how well are they doing? How trustworthy have they been? How good at managing have they done?
You have the Greens, who are the Greens are the just in case you're kind of mad about the Democrats, we still want to keep you in the voting don't actually go do anything. And then on the right, you have the Libertarians. Oh, you're mad at the Republicans, but you don't make sure nothing happens. So we better go. And freaking the Libertarians get 15% of they are, if anything, if we wanted to take over a mainstream party and do some shit with it, it'd be the Libertarians. They're getting the closest to let us reduce the government, but not act. They don't actually mean it. That's the freaking thing. I want to reduce the government, but actually, I think that just entirely removing the government of the United States of America would just be a net positive instantly, despite a whole bunch of shit would fall apart, of course, but just our lack of ability to go around bombing random people would be a net good for the entire world, and then we can have our fun little civil war and get our freaking proletarian government going, all right? We can move on.
Yeah, they're trying. The reason the problem is that they want to move towards feudalism without understanding what feudalism is.
We are in there's one unprecedented thing about America that makes this whole thing where I can't just be like, well, this is probably what's going to happen. You talk about looking back historically, well, what has happened? We are in one historically new weird thing, which is we are the biggest economy, whatever, most important country in the world, blah, blah. We are the hegemon, and our economy is 70% service sector. That has never happened. We have never had the most power. Rome was not 70% service sector. We truly do not produce things here. But why that is important for commies is that it means the proletarian, meaning productive labor, the jobs that going on strike would actually shut shit down. Your porters, your frickin' steel workers, etc. The proletarian productive labor. There is very little of that in America. So you can see that as the ruling class going, oh, the proles could defeat us. Let us make that kind of work no longer exist. So then who's gonna, your strike doesn't work if you're 2% of the frickin' economy. And currently they're 15, I think, percent of the U.S. economy is actual productive labor. I do not know how that goes because Marx did not analyze for that because what? Yeah. We have a whole country of people who make and deliver pizzas? It's yeah, I'm in service sector. I'm a fucking teacher. That's not, I don't make a product. If I go on strike, they're cool. Anyway, we're going to have them watch a video.
Time to get the video, the tape player out. And then that's the thing. It's just, we live in a very confusing time but it's, we don't want to just sit and shit in the punch bowl here about this.
Things are changing. That is very good. Things cannot but change.
This, like I was saying at the top of the hour, this plus the anti-IDF, anti-Israel, anti-Greater Israel, anti-war sentiment, and
they can't fix it with a war. We don't want the war.
Well, also, the people in the UK, they're having shit quality of life too. Canadians are having shit quality of life. A lot of these countries that were supposed to be so wonderful and great and following the American method are having just as bad of a time as we are in different forms and fashions, and some the same with their health care. Even though that they're supposed to have national health care, they just keep taking away, making it harder and harder and harder on people. Now in both places, if they don't want to give you a wheelchair, they can say, hey, you want to die? We can let you die. So that's the alternative that the governments are doing now, and we are not far from that happening here. I feel
in our Civil War that us and Canada, I think it would kick off at the same time, and I don't think that the U.S. is going to take over Canada in this weird Trumpian sense that we just absorb them. But I could see some thing of all right, everybody, we are now the the U.S. and Canada are so similar that I don't think it'd be that insane or mind-blowing for us to end up as one nation in the future. Like,
Yes, as
eh,
some sort of economic reasoning,
it's up to
or
what the Canadian people want. If they don't want that, it's fine. Everybody's right to free freaking
they're
self-determination.
gigantic with land, but small in population. So it
Yeah.
does seem like they could maybe be eaten up at some point by a sympathetic, government, like getting
Well,
in
I
there.
would love the freaking vanguard of the U.S. and Canada to be like, we have similar goals. Let us unite, and like that'd be freaking baller. But I don't know.
The whole thing is like, that the reason that this is happening is like because people are tired, they want to change, but they don't know what to do. They are powerless. Everything tried has not worked. Like the musical acts who say the bare minimum of what we're all feeling, get their visas pulled or their tours canceled in the United States. And then somebody who's just like, I want to give food to people is communist suddenly. So like, you were never going to get here without a tremendous amount of pushback by the people in power.
It's falling
But
apart.
yeah, but the challenges, these gambits that people, even you as an individual watching this, is saying, hey, I don't, this is not good. The gambits that people are making, whether or not it's controlled, whether or not it's right or left, whether or not we're picking away at the structure. And that happens in many, many different ways. So it's like, are we going to sit here and say the Mamdani primary one is bad? Not necessarily. Are we going to say people, taking their public platforms and saying, hey, maybe genocide is not a good thing? Or we're going to say that's bad? No, we're not. But the thing of this all is that it's not a coincidence that all of this is happening at the same time, because people now are starting to get more wise to what's going on, and that the system is failing everybody everywhere, that our parents and grandparents and older siblings or older cousins, whatever, had much better lives than we have ever even known. That we're getting to age 40 and we have nothing to show for it and we're upset about it, yada, yada, yada. Like we're tired of the healthcare situation. We're tired of the cost of living. We're tired of all of this stuff. And so the people, are getting, the natives are getting restless is ultimately what we're looking at here, which is a good thing. So we're not going to sit here and say that, something as piecemeal as a democratic socialist winning a primary in a city is a bad thing. It's just like, it's going to depend on more and more people getting involved and realizing that they have to put emphasis on this and educate themselves and work on their media literacy and put their voices out there, whether you're doing it like this or just through tweets or talking to people in your community. There is more to be done. And this is not the end. This is at best a breath of beginning. Like we're not there. And this could take years. We might never even see progress really make it that much of a difference in our lifetimes. I'm not super hopeful. I'm not even really at this point. I think growing up, I always felt like I was going to live to a very old age. I don't feel like that anymore. And I kind of don't even care, at this point. It's like, because things are going to get better. Are things going to get better? Like 10 years, things are going to be better. 20 years, things are going to be better. No.
I think 10 years things will be, I think 10 years things will be different. Whether or not it's better, worse, or whatever is kind of up to us. But I genuinely believe that I will see at least the beginning of the building of communism with American characteristics in my lifetime. I wouldn't even be shocked if it's within like 10 years, because I listen to people talk, and what gives me hope is people talk about finance capital. They'll be like, hey, like, what's their long-term plan? And people like Michael Hudson, my favorite dude, will be like, oh, there is no long-term plan. These guys are looking at 3-month forecasts at max. They need to make sure they hit their bonuses, which happen every 3 months, every fiscal quarter. That's all they're looking at. And I think one of these 3-month cycles, inevitably, they're going to be like, okay, wait, what happened? Oh, shit, it's all fucked. Like, it's just they won't even know what's happening until it has already happened. Just like with the housing crash and every crash before it, none of the approved Western experts are going to be calling it until it has already happened, until it's freaking over. And they're going to be like, what happened? I don't understand. And I'll be standing going, I understand. You did a weird Ponzi scheme that inevitably collapsed.
Who could have foreseen that? Michael Hudson.
Michael Hudson and everybody in China.
Yeah, right. The idea is that, a lot of these problems we're going through now happened in the 70s, and we know what happened to the president in the 70s. So
the last sovereign U.S. president was shot in the face, And then the next president took us off. Actually, I think Nixon was pretty sovereign. I don't know how he didn't get killed, actually, when you look at the changes he made. Not that they were good, bad, or
stupid and not worth it.
Trying to change anything is what gets you killed in the U.S. presidency. And taking us off the gold standard is such an insane move.
Right.
Like, in terms of amount, like, that is a freaking, in terms of finance capital, the true power in the entire earth right now, that is a seismic shift. And it ended up paying off massively. And then, yeah, you got Reagan running right after that. Was it Nixon to Reagan, or am I forgetting? It was like Ford
Carter.
in between them or something.
It was Ford, then Carter.
Ford, Carter, Reagan. Okay.
Ford, Carter, Reagan. And, well, Reagan undermined. Carter really couldn't lead very well. He was just kind of too hey, guys, but...
he kept the wars going, but didn't do much.
Yeah, but that's a whole conversation for another day. But Reagan and his team ultimately made a deal with Iran to try to do the release the hostages and stuff like that. And he wasn't even anybody at that point. He'd just been governor of California,
which is a war machine that couldn't have kept rolling without us abandoning the gold standard. The reason that we abandoned the gold standard was because it was becoming unfeasible to finance our wars. So because just gold is finite. And so when people talk about gold, like, oh, we should go back on gold, it's like, in a weird roundabout way, if you did that, it would make doing these wars really, really hard. It's kind of weirdly a force for peace. And that's where me and a couple of libertarians can have, like, a little bit of agreement. Like, that's the Venn diagram. It's like, thinking gold is important. That's where we we disagree on why it's important. But
at this time, we're also seeing... gas prices were out of control. There was gas rationing happening. Inflation was out of control. Food prices were out of control. So, and then that went away, for a while. The 80s, that's why people are so nostalgic about the 80s. Not only was the culture great, but literally pretty much nobody was at war visibly. We were just, Reagan was just really just squashing communist government in the global South, but that wasn't on people's minds. They were like, hey, we can afford food and we are living great and our kids are having a good time. Have you seen our gigantic Stranger Things house? Everyone's got one. We
peaked in 91, which was in the peak of people collecting their retirements, etc., from good jobs that they had in the 50s.
Yes, when they had pensions, and because pensions went away. But that's just kind of to say and put a cap on this is that went away. For a while. And then that could happen again, technically.
Isn't it funny? As soon as the Soviet Union fell apart, suddenly, all the fighting for all of our labor movement fell apart also. Isn't that a weird coincidence? How suddenly, when there was no major adversary for the great Satan, suddenly all of our individual lives get worse. Oh, no! I'm going to skip my whole speech where I talk about how the USSR beat us to all of our wokeness. They had women in the workplace before us. They had integrated workplaces before us. They had all that. And then the US embarrassed. The embarrassed US has to be like, oh shit, okay, we got to stop being so racist here. We're looking bad compared to Russia.
So yeah, that's a whole other conversation that we will have at some point. There's always so much that we don't get to. There's more that we don't end up getting to than we do.
Especially when I have all this much coffee and my internet goes down and I'm all manic.
And yeah, well, that's a hallmark of our show is tech problems. So you can learn to love them.
It was smoothish from there.
Yes. So
all right.
will
wrap us
happen?
out.
Yes. We'll leave you on a positive note and say, can something happen? You don't have to necessarily go out of your sphere. You got Twitter or something already. Just start saying things. Start not believing everything that you're told. Turn off the nightly news. Just make small steps in the direction of moving against the capitalist system that has oppressed you so that you have turned 40 or you're getting ready to, and your whole life has been trash. So if you are sick of that, let's move past it, even if it's just an individual thought process. So smarten up, people.
Yeah, read some books.
Smarten up. Okay, so Jared will be with us next week. I'll probably just come on and ramble and talk about all the things that we're not getting and that we should have. So we'll continue this conversation next week.
You got to do an extended reading.
Yeah, he'll be in and out with us. Yeah, here we go. And so I will see what I'm going to do around all that time, but I will keep you informed. As always, you should follow us on our socials. We're on Twitter, Blue Sky, Twitch, Rumble. Is that it? I think so. We're on all the things. So just find us at Social Contract or One Social Contract Pod. Our Twitter has all the links in the bio. Links in the bio. So you can find us there. And we will continue to bring you the whatever fresh hell is going on. But so thank you for watching and keeping us company today. We appreciate you. As always, you can find our archive of film on our archives of shows on Rumble and YouTube. And you could reach out to us if you have comments, questions, something you think that we should be talking about or know more about. We'd love to hear from you. So take care, everybody. And yeah, Jared's gonna dance and sing his coffee off.
Deaf to the IDF. That rhyme only works if you say it British.
So innocuous.
IDF does not rhyme with deaf unless you are English and say deaf with an F.
Yeah.
Deaf to the IDF.
Yeah, well, it's something so, that is such an innocuous thing to have happened anyways, and it's just getting conflated. But we'll talk about that on another day, or else we're just going to sit here and continue to talk. So thanks for being with us. Take care of each other. Take care of yourselves. Educate yourselves. Take off the aluminum foil helmet, and we'll see you. We'll see you next week, or I will. Somebody will. Maybe. We'll see. If there is a next week,